Here is the paradox. Italy is not poor. It is not weak. It is not broken. And yet, it cannot grow. For 20 years, the numbers have barely moved. GDP lines flat, productivity frozen, wages trapped in amber, a modern economy behaving like a museum exhibit. Most explanations stop at symptoms: bad politicians, lazy bureaucracy, the euro, bad luck. Those are comfortable stories. They imply accident. They imply repair. But systems do not drift for decades by mistake. They do exactly what they were built to do. To understand Italy, you have to stop thinking about failure and start thinking about design. Because Italy once mastered a trick that felt like magic, a way to grow without changing, a way to win without becoming better, a way to postpone reality. That trick was the Lira. From the 1970s through the early 1990s, Italy lived inside a different financial universe. Borders mattered, currencies moved, governments could bend prices with a signature. When Italian factories lost competitiveness, the state did not ask them to innovate. It changed the measuring stick. A cheaper lira made the same product look stronger abroad. Not smarter, not faster, just cheaper. On a chart, exports rose, jobs survived, politicians smiled, voters felt protected. But underneath, something else was happening. Time was being borrowed, discipline was being deferred, pain was being anesthetized. Every devaluation trained the system to avoid reform. Every crisis reinforced the habit. The economy learned that survival came from Rome, not from improvement. This was not corruption, it was rational behavior inside a permissive system. Then the world changed. In the 1990s, capital went global, supply chains stretched, currencies became weapons. Europe responded with something radical: a single currency, a locked exchange rate, no more escape valves. When Italy joined the euro in 1999, the lira did not die, it became a ghost. The habits remained, the expectations remained, but the lever was gone. From that moment on, Italy was forced to live inside a system that no longer forgave delay, a system that rewarded efficiency and punished memory. What followed was not collapse, it was something quieter, a slow realization that the old magic trick no longer worked and that the bill had finally arrived. To see the trap, look at a map of Europe in 2002. The euro spreads like a single color, but the economies beneath it are different machines. Germany entered the euro after a decade of restraint, wage freezes, industrial consolidation, a quiet social pact between labor and capital. Italy entered with something else: fragmentation, family firms, politics designed to preserve employment, not productivity. Under the lira, these differences were hidden. Under the euro, they became permanent. A currency union is not just money, it is a rule book. It decides who adjusts and who waits. Germany adjusted internally: lower wages, higher efficiency, relentless export discipline. Italy could not. Its wages were indexed to inflation. Its firms were protected from scale. Its courts moved at the speed of memory. When the euro removed devaluation, Italy needed another adjustment mechanism. It never built one. So the pressure moved elsewhere, into wages that stopped rising, into youth unemployment, into public debt. Debt became the substitute for growth, a way to keep promises made in a different era. By 1994, Italy's debt had already crossed 120% of GDP. The euro did not cause this, it froze it in place. With its own currency, debt could be diluted. With the euro, it had to be serviced. Every budget became a balancing act: appease markets, avoid recession, protect pensions, do not anger Brussels. This is how stagnation becomes policy, not chosen,
managed. Look at the factories. They did not disappear, they shrank. Italy did not lose industry, it miniaturized it. By 2010, over 90% of Italian firms had fewer than 10 employees, too small to invest, too small to export at scale, too small to matter politically. And staying small was rewarded. Cross 15 employees and the state arrives, labor protections, legal risk, permanent obligations. So firms learn the lesson: do not grow, split, hide, freeze. This is not cultural, it is structural. The euro locked the doors, domestic rules removed the ladders, and the system settled into a stable equilibrium. Not growth, not collapse, stasis. An economy breathing just enough to survive, but never enough to run. Stasis has consequences. They appear first in people. Walk through an Italian town at midday, shops open, customers missing, the median age quietly rising. In 1964, Italy's fertility rate was above 2.5. By 1995, it fell below replacement. By 2023, it hovered near 1.2. This is not a cultural mystery, it is arithmetic. Young workers fund pensions. Old systems depend on young bodies. When the base shrinks, the structure leans. Italy chose protection early, guaranteed jobs, indexed wages, generous retirement. These were humane decisions. They stabilized a volatile society. They also hardened it. By the 1980s, the social contract was complete. Benefits promised, costs postponed. The euro ended postponement, but the promises remained. Today, nearly €1 in every 6 produced in Italy goes to pensions, before schools, before infrastructure, before research. Politics follows the math. Older voters dominate. Risk is punished. Reform becomes betrayal. So the system optimizes for calm, not for renewal. Young Italians notice. They study.
They adapt. Then they leave. In 2008, the global crisis hit. Italy never recovered. Employment for under 30s collapsed. Temporary contracts replaced careers. A degree became a passport. Berlin, London, Dublin. The state paid for the education. Another country collected the taxes. This is not failure. It is a release valve. Migration prevents revolt. Anger exits quietly through airports. The pressure dissipates. Those who stay adjust expectations. Later families, lower consumption, less risk. Demography becomes destiny, not because people choose decline, but because the system rewards delay. Every year without growth tightens the loop. Lower productivity, lower wages, fewer births. The economy does not fall, it settles. Like a city built for 1 million, now inhabited by half, but still maintaining the same streets. This is what permanence looks like: slow, orderly, exhausting. And once a society ages into this shape, escape requires something stronger than policy. It requires disruption, which the system is designed to prevent. Bureaucracy is often blamed, but in Italy, bureaucracy is not inefficiency, it is architecture. After the war, the state expanded to guarantee stability. Jobs became rights, rules became shields. Each law solved a crisis, none were ever removed. By the 1990s, Italy had built a legal labyrinth, permits layered on permits, courts buried under appeals, time stretched. In 2004, enforcing a commercial contract took over 3 years, in some regions 5. Justice became optional. Investors noticed. Capital hates uncertainty, so it learned to avoid Italy. Not dramatically, quietly. Factories were placed elsewhere. Headquarters moved. Decisions delayed. The state responded with protection, more rules, more guarantees, and so the loop closed. The euro made capital mobile. Italian institutions made it cautious. What could not move stayed. What could leave did. The economy hollowed from the top.
management abroad, ownership abroad, control elsewhere. But the liabilities remained local. Debt filled the gap. Public hiring replaced private risk. Transfers replaced investment. By 2011, the system cracked. Bond yields surged. Markets questioned permanence. The response was not reinvention, it was containment. The European Central Bank promised stability, whatever it takes. Rates fell, pressure eased, the structure survived. But survival became the goal. Every reform since has been marginal, enough to reassure markets, never enough to change behavior, because change threatens contracts, pensions, jobs, votes.
The system protects incumbents. Time rewards those already inside. This is why bureaucracy feels eternal. It is not meant to be navigated, it is meant to discourage motion. Like walls in an old city, beautiful, defensive, and impossible to remove without collapse. Italy does not suffer from too much state, it suffers from a state designed to last forever. And forever is very expensive. Look south, the map darkens. Northern Italy runs on schedules, southern Italy runs on promises. This divide predates the euro, it predates the lira, it predates the state itself. After unification in 1861, Italy fused two economies that had never met, an industrial north and agrarian south. One parliament, one tax system. Capital flowed upward, obligations flowed downward. The state tried to compensate, transfers, public jobs, infrastructure plans. Some worked, most froze dependency in place. By the 1970s, the South had learned the system. Private risk was dangerous, public employment was permanent. Organized crime adapted faster than the state. Protection replaced contracts, cash replaced courts. This was not chaos, it was equilibrium. The euro did not fix this, it hardened it. Without devaluation, the South lost its last lever. Wages could not fall, productivity could not rise, so unemployment absorbed the shock. The North resented the transfers, the South depended on them. Politics became regional arithmetic. Every budget was a truce, every reform a threat. This is how national systems fracture, not with revolt, with resignation. Young Southerners left first, then Northerners followed. The internal border moved outward. What remained was an economy with one engine and one anchor. Growth pulled, debt dragged. Europe watched this and misunderstood it. They saw mismanagement, they prescribed discipline. But discipline without flexibility does not create growth, it preserves structure. Italy complied just enough, deficits trimmed, rules followed, no foundations touched. Because touching foundations risks collapse, and collapse is the true escape. So the system chose endurance, slow decline over sudden break, predictable stagnation over creative destruction. This is the logic of permanence. It favors survival over progress, order over renewal, and once chosen, it is very hard to unchoose. Debt is the quiet governor of modern states. It does not shout, it whispers. In Italy, debt did not arrive as a crisis, it accumulated as a solution. In the 1970s, inflation erased obligations. In the 1980s, growth disguised them. By the time the euro arrived, the past was already financed. Markets understood this immediately. They priced Italy not for collapse, but for endurance. High debt, stable politics, slow decay. A predictable asset. As long as growth stayed low and default stayed unthinkable, the bonds would clear. This is the paradox of too big to fail. It creates discipline without escape. Every budget must reassure creditors. Every reform must avoid shock. Interest rates became policy. Spreads became elections. In 2012, the ECB said the words that froze history, "Whatever it takes." From that moment, collapse was removed. So was urgency. Cheap money allowed survival. It did not allow transformation. Debt locked the system in time.
Not because it was immoral, but because it was functional. The state could roll obligations, banks could hold paper, voters could keep promises. No one had to tell the truth. This is how permanence is engineered, not with chains, but with comfort. A system that cannot fall, and therefore cannot change.
Stability became the ceiling, and ceilings are hard to break when they are holding the roof. They tell the story as if it were a mystery, why Italy cannot grow, why reforms fail, why nothing seems to work. But the system is not confused, it is complete. Every institution points inward, every incentive rewards stillness, every promise assumes tomorrow will look like yesterday. The lira trained the reflex, the euro froze the pose, debt sealed it in place. This is not a conspiracy, it is alignment. Workers seek security, firms seek protection, politicians seek re-election, markets seek predictability. Each gets what it wants, no one gets growth. Escaping would require breaking contracts, reducing pensions, allowing failure, letting companies die, letting cities shrink, letting promises end. That is not reform, that is rupture. Modern systems are built to avoid rupture at all costs. They learned from the 1930s, from 1945, from collapse and hunger and fire. Stability became sacred. Change became suspect. Italy followed that lesson perfectly, too perfectly. So it drifts, maintained, managed, preserved. A country turned into an asset class, priced, hedged, held. The tragedy is not decline, it is permanence. A beautiful nation optimized to remain itself forever. When growth disappears, life becomes administrative. When risk vanishes, so does youth. When time stops, debt takes its place. Nothing here is accidental. Nothing here is temporary. The system is not waiting to be fixed. It is waiting to be inherited by fewer people with fewer choices, carrying obligations from a century they did not design. Italy cannot grow because growth would require forgetting, and forgetting would break the spell. So the system endures, quietly, elegantly, until endurance itself becomes the cost. And when the future finally arrives, it will not ask permission, it will simply demand payment. And that payment will not be financial alone. It will be measured in years, in postponed lives, in innovations never attempted, in children never born, in cities preserved but hollow, in a stability so complete it forgets why growth mattered at all. And when the silence lifts, history will not call it collapse. It will call it design, working exactly as intended. Because the most powerful systems survive by convincing those inside them that survival is enough for now.